Hi guys, I'm Brynulf. Welcome to Rimworld. This first episode, episode 0 technically, will just be an introduction. I'll go over what mods I use and the game setup with creating the characters and the world. If you want to go straight to the actual gameplay, there should be a link on the screen right now. And if you want to stick with me and see some things behind the hood or under the hood, let's go. I'm gonna start with the mods. I've got the core, of course, miscellaneous, which doesn't do a lot, but it has the plugins for and it's needed for training, which just adds some training dummies for melee and shooting, which is a form of UI, and also can raise your skills. Robots adds, well, robots, believe it or not, hauling bots and cleaning bots. And then I have robots plus, which adds a few more robots and does some balancing, because they were a bit OP in at least my opinion. Makes them a bit more expensive. Numbers just create so you can bring up whatever stats you want. It's customizable. Blueprints, pretty self-explanatory, allows you to copy designs. Colony manager allows you to semi-automate a few stuff, which you basically have a desk where you create some guidelines and then your colonists will do the actual planning based on the guidelines you've given them. Real drug names, self-explanatory. Hospitality basically makes visitors have a point, so you can interact with them, do some limited trading, improve faction disposition, and also try to recruit some of them, which will lower the disposition of that faction. Iron Dan is a new storyteller, which is, well, pretty much Randy Random, but Randy Random as he should have been. And he also allows for much bigger colonies. I'm not sure if everyone's aware, but by default the game tries to sort of steer you into a proper size of your colony. So I think it's when you get past 8 or so colonists, it will stop some things from happening. You won't have any wanderers join, you won't have crashed escape pods or things that just, you know, flat out gives you colonists and will limit that. This guy doesn't do that until you reach 100 people, which you won't. It will kill your CPU before that, I'm pretty sure. Haven't tried it though. Stone cutting tweaks, basic thing, not really important. Efficient light just makes lights equivalent in power drainage to what we have, which isn't that much to ask for a sci-fi game, I think. Prepare carefully lets you customize your colonists. Just allow tool lets you unforbid a lot of items at once. Really good when you have like 30 plus enemies die in your kill box and you wanna just unforbid everything. Fluffies, animal tab, got a lot of fluffies mods, I really like them. Just gives you a lot more information, really. Quality builder has got a fairly new mod from what I've seen, really popular. Lets you just click in when you place it that you want a certain quality, and if they build something and it's not good enough, they will deconstruct it and start over. Miniaturization lets you move more stuff around in the same manner that a lot of things already were, but only some. Autoseller, pretty self-explanatory. Setup guidelines, and it will sell good for end game when you have like 1,000 pieces of clothing from enemies and you want to sell them in bulk without having to click a million times. More floors, just cosmetics. doormats actually not just cosmetic, they actually have a function that whenever a pawn passes over one, they will drop whatever dirt they're carrying around on their feet onto it, so it actually makes cleaning rooms easier. But it requires carpet making, so you have to research that first. Expander prosthetics and organ engineering is a pretty standard mod for many people. Allows you to create prosthetics and organs from very simple things like hook hands to advanced bionics and brain implants and so on. Fences, both physical and merely visual. It's a nice thing. I don't use them that much. I don't like that the small fences actually take more resources than full-on walls, which I think is a bit silly, but sometimes do I tend to hold off on it. I'm not much of a visual guy. I tend to go for what's effective, and the fences don't do that much. They can be good for holding critters from eating your crops, but often I go for greenhouses anyways. So mending, I'm not 100% of this one. It's a bit OP, but it's the best one I've found right now that's up to date. It lets you repair anything, and it takes 0 resources, which I don't really like. I found another one that took cloth and metal and stuff, and it required that for pretty much anything, and to a point where it wasn't worth trying to repair anything that wasn't like power armor or charge rifles. And I mean, in the best case scenario, you'd have a dynamic thing like repairing a cloth t-shirt takes cloth, repairing power armor takes plasteel, and so on. But that's probably not something we should look forward to. It's not gonna happen. It's too complex, I think. So this one for now, I'll probably just go with it. It's a game balance thing. It's a preference thing. Do you think it's better to just go without and just produce new stuff, or do you think it's fair to just repair what you have? On the other side, there's a mod I usually use that's not been updated for Alpha 15, which slows down degrading, so it will be degrading more, but I can repair it with just a bit of work for free, except for the work part. Hair mod, just more hairstyles. Hysteres lets you do crafting a bit more like Dwarf Fortress, in that you set a goal and a lower threshold. So when it hits, if say I want to make simple meals, I set make 100. Then when it reaches 100, it will stop if I tell it to stop. And I set a lower threshold of say 5, like it says here. When they've eaten everything to the point where there's only 5 left, it'll start again, and it will make up to 100, instead of just running and making 1 every time someone eats. Some more hair. Gonna move it up next to the other one just for reference. More vanilla turrets. Add some more turrets that I think are fairly well balanced. Only one that you don't have to there's one that you don't have to actually research, but I still think is fairly good. It's basically an improvised turret that's not automated, so someone has to man it for it to work, and it takes steel and components, but on the other hand, it doesn't take any energy actually, because instead there's a person manning it. It's fairly balanced, I think. RTFU is one of my favorite mods. It just creates 2 items, fuses and circuit breakers, which instead, when there's a short circuit, If you have a fuse, it will break, but there won't be a big explosion and stuff breaking. Rather, this will break instead. Circuit breaker is a fairly advanced item that takes plasteel and components, but on the other hand it doesn't break. You just have to flip it to activate it again. And I mean, it's technology we have today, so it makes sense for it to exist in a sci-fi world. Then there's, I'm gonna do my own mod last. Enhanced forest just adds more trees and retweaks some stuff. I think there's more rain. Don't think it changes the animals, but well, it makes it forests feel like actual forests, so I like it. Does give you more wood, which you might want to take into consideration, but mainly for visual purposes. Tilled soil isn't activated. That's because I have a tweaked version of it integrated into my personal mod, and this is a mod I just used myself. I haven't uploaded it, so I'm not stealing that guy's stuff. I'm not using that other than personally. It adds, you can till soil basically, which is slightly better than rich soil, but mainly it's, I just like not having to, you know, build my entire base around where the rich soil is, and it makes sense to be able to till soil. But it was a bit OP in my book, so I vastly increased the amount of work it takes to do it. So now it takes, I think it's 4 or 5 times as much work, and still fairly fast, and it's permanent. You don't have to redo it. There have been a few different versions of this idea over the years, or well, however long this game's been out, I can't remember. I know one I tried where soil creating, I think it was fertilized soil or something, was something super advanced that pretty much on par with making power armor, and it was really late game and required a lot of resources. That's probably the extreme on that end, and then there's this that's probably the more extreme on the other end, where it's really efficient and bordering on OP. But I mean, it's a single player game. There's no cheating in a single player game, especially with modding. It's whatever you make of it. And I should mention here the transition into what I've modded myself, because that touches on the same area, because I've modded a lot of the plants to grow much slower, so you won't be getting 3 or 4 harvests per summer. In fact, you'll have to pretty much optimize your growing if you're gonna have a chance at getting 2. So I try to balance it around the idea that a normal harvest should be 1 harvest per summer. So most things grow at roughly 1/3 of the pace, so it takes 3 times as long to reach harvest, but you also get roughly 3 times as much. So you get the same amount of food out of it, but it takes more time. A few there are a few exceptions. I think if it was hay grass, I think didn't get, I felt you got a lot of that as well, so I didn't quite triple it, so you don't get quite as much per day, but I also didn't increase the time it took as much, so still balancing, because you have to take into account also that the longer time it takes to grow, the more things can go wrong on the way. The bigger the chance that you're gonna get an eclipse where it doesn't grow, the bigger the chance you're gonna get a crop blight, which by the way is an incident I don't like, so I actually turn it off, because Well, I talk about it when I do the game setup, but you can also get fires that destroy. You can get cold snaps, so you have to take those things into account. Trees also grow slower, which I've modded, but live a lot longer. Pretty much everything lives a lot longer. I think the daylilies are the things that live for the shortest time. They live for like 10 days, I think, in my mod. But trees will take much longer to grow, but they'll also live. An oak will live for 100 years, which feels realistic in my book. And also there's a lot of many of the crops will not be destroyed when you harvest them. I try to base it on real life fairly well. So for instance, heel root, if you harvest the root, the plant dies. Makes sense to me. But take strawberries for instance. If you just because you pick the strawberries doesn't mean that the plant dies. Also potatoes, as long as you leave a single potato in the ground, it will just sprout again. That's how they work. In fact, the strawberry is actually less realistic in that it has to grow from the beginning and not just start growing the strawberry itself only and still have the bush. But since it grows so slowly, unless you have greenhouses, it won't be noticeable because they'll die in winter anyway. So, but it does make greenhouses better. There's a mod that hasn't been updated yet, which I really like, which makes it also so that plants can technically grow in the night if they have light and heat, which also makes greenhouses better. But I mean, it's reasonable. It's how it works in real life. I try to have it somewhat realistic. And maybe I shouldn't. I finished talking about my own mod first before I move on to some of the ones I wish were updated. I've also changed mental breaks somewhat. So mental breaks will happen pretty much the same, but I've retweaked some of them. The more severe ones, like walking around in a daze and setting fires, I've set so they have a slightly well, mainly I've changed that they can snap out of it earlier. They don't have to go around set fires for hours. They could snap out of it in a short time, or they could go around for a long time. I think I changed how common they were also, so it's actually more common for a person who snaps to go hide in their room or say binge on food or alcohol than it is for them to just snap and wander around, because, well, it feels realistic to me. When it comes to Berserk, I tried modding that one. For now it's just disabled because I haven't really gotten it to the point where I like it. Not sure what I want to do with it. I thought about having it exclusive to psychopaths or people with bloodlust. I've also seen some people who have changed it so that you don't actually attack other people, you attack animals or furniture or stuff. But we'll see where that goes. I've also rebalanced a few thoughts. Some I've left unchanged, the one I felt makes sense, like losing family members I've left unchanged, other than that it doesn't last quite as long. Once again, the optimal solution would have it tick down over a long time. Since I can't do that, this is, I felt, the best version that's not too hard to make, where they're really devastated but it doesn't last for half a year, it only lasts for like a season, which is a pretty short mourning period, but on the other hand, it's really heavy morning. There's no light morning going on. Also, some thoughts like being in a dark room, I felt were too powerful. I mean, they shouldn't be freaking out just because it's a bit dark when you're trying to survive on an alien world. It felt a bit silly. The biggest change I probably made was the reaction to seeing non-allies die, meaning primarily pirates and tribals who attack you. That used to be some a really negative debuff that scaled a lot, and pretty much made in combination with observing corpses, it made everyone super depressed whenever they were attacked. I changed that quite a bit, so now it's called, I think, witnessed combat, and the thought is death was right by me, but I lived to tell the tale. So it's a small positive instead, and it stacks slightly, not a lot, only slightly, and roughly enough to make up for the dead bodies, which I didn't change how much dead bodies bother them, I think, but I changed how much it stacked, so it wasn't that much worse to witness 7 bodies than it was to witness 3, for instance. So those should pretty much mitigate each other. So unless someone they knew died, or they like have to stand around for a long time inside a field of corpses, they shouldn't freak generally, or if they're hurt or something, just a bit more balanced in my thought. And the last thing I changed in my personal mod was to remove most of the incapabilities, because it didn't make sense to me that medieval lordling was physically incapable of hauling. I mean, just picking something up, walking to another spot and putting it down. He might not like it, and ideally I'd like a mood debuff or something on it, but for now they just can't do it. There are 2 exceptions. One is Mending, which is a skill added by Colony Manager, and because it's added there, I haven't gone into the files of that mod and changed anything. And the other is violence. If they're incapable of violence, like they have PTSD, or if they're pacifists, they still will be, and that's because it works slightly different. It doesn't block the work designations like the others do. It blocks the actual action of shooting a gun or going into melee, and so that's why it's not blocked. That's why I haven't changed it in the same way I changed the others. So technically now someone who's incapable of violence could be set to hunting, but they won't be able to shoot or strike at the animal, which is a bit silly, but that's how it stands right now. And it also, I think, it makes being incapable of violence because of something like PTSD makes more sense than most of the others. Let's see some of the ones that aren't updated that I would like to use. Core library, of course, and pretty much all the others that aren't up to date, or because they're waiting for the core library to be updated. Combat realism is something I love. It makes combat much more deadly. It makes adds ammunition, so you don't have infinite shots, and it makes it a lot more tactical. And people can't just soak up infinite bullets, or well, it's not infinite in vanilla either, but they can take nearly as much damage before going down. I really like that mod, and I hope the people who have been working on it since I think it was Sky Archangel, who I'm not sure if that's the guy who took over or if that's the guy who originally made the mod, because anyway, the original creator has well, quite frankly, he's gotten burned out of Rimworld from what I understood, so he won't be working on it anymore. But there are people who are picking up where he left off best they can, because they have their own mods to work on as well. And so if we come into a situation where like muffalos or insects attack, I'll probably underestimate them, because they can soak up a lot more damage than you expect. And without this mod, close combat becomes much more good, much more viable. Anyway, let's move forward. Let's new colony. My custom wishes, which is a version of Crash Landed. I've decreased some of the resources to start with. I've decreased, I think, I've removed the scattered meals, and let's go into the editor. We're gonna start with 5 people, because I've actually created on beforehand. I've created myself and some of my friends, so I thought that would be a fun thing to try. Otherwise, I like to at least to some degree randomize the people, but it's also fun to try and recreate real people. Just creating them for the purpose of the game easily gets a bit OP when you like, okay, this guy's gonna be a grower, this guy's gonna be a hauler. I've created an incident that's gonna repeat for the orbital traders to show up once per season, because I feel, well, late game you can easily run out of resources, otherwise it can be a bit limiting. Well, it's open for discussion how you want to solve it. This is the one I'm going with for today. I mentioned earlier that I'm disabling crop light. That's partly because, well, if you're only getting one crop per season, or rather year, and that one dies, you're pretty much screwed. So this one becomes a lot more dangerous. And the other thing is, I don't think it's a very dynamic incident. It's pretty much just, yeah, your plant just dies. They're just poof, gone. I think it's much more fun when there's like a cold snap or something that you have to, you know, react to in some way. And my thought process with solar flare is kind of similar. Nothing that it's super bad. The thing it does is that it disables all your electronics, which basically means all your turrets. That's the dangerous part it does. But it doesn't feel like it's something actually happening. It feels very fake. It feels like someone just flipped a switch on the electronics, and that's why I don't like it personally. But let's get going. Set age ranges, but those won't factor in since they're all customly created anyway. Gonna play on extreme. Let's see if we can get some fun. See something that sounds silence. No. Jockstrap, yeah, let's go with that one. Minshir 15. Just gonna click in large one. Let's do a quick check, see what we can find. There's pirates. Is there only one pirate? I'm terrible at trying to spot these things. Got some outlanders there. Oh, more pirates up here. Good for them trying to survive up there. I'd like to see how they did it. Oh, and there were tribesmen clears as well. I often like playing. I tried pretty much all biomes. My favorite is probably northern part of the temperate zone, because it's, well, I feel it's where you get the biggest changes between the seasons. I would probably like a little colder in winter. And I want it to be a mountainous region, by the way. It's just much easier. I mean, with deep drilling it might be more viable with others, and there's some mods also. I know there's one that adds the quarry and stuff, but I pretty much always go with the mountainous region, so you have a fair amount of resources. This looks good. Marble, sandstone, limestone. We'll probably mostly be using limestone. Marble isn't actually really good for anything that I know, but I like to use it for like ceremonial purposes, like recreations room, or like making a mausoleum for my colonists or something. Yeah, I think that's good. Let's go in here. Can go to prepare carefully. Load my friends, and I'll quickly go over them and what they're good at. So we got Oscar Bengtsson, aka Cutthroat. He's 28 years old, grew up as a mid-world geek, became a lazy programmer. He's too smart, meaning he'll learn stuff faster, but he'll also snap easier. And he's very neurotic, meaning he'll... No, I thought I changed that one. No, he's not supposed to be that. He's supposed to be nervous, meaning he snaps even easier. So he'll have a tendency to snap. He's a cold lover, however, so he'll be the guy walking around in shorts and a t-shirt in the winter. And if we look at his skills, he's got some proficiency for shooting, might be good end game at it, depending on how much combat we see. He's a little better at melee, but well, I often think shooting's the better way to go if you can. Pretty good at cooking. Can be a crafter if we don't have anyone better, especially with the too smart as well. He's gonna learn it really quickly, as long as he's not freaking out and we can actually use him. Mainly because of his computer background, he's going to be really good at research, and he's going to go forward and increase his skill there as well. Okay, managing isn't actually that time consuming, and the only thing that it affects is how much time you spend doing it, so not gonna matter that much, the skill there, but doesn't hurt. None of these incapabilities are actually gonna come in effect because of how I modded it. Next we got Carl Nilsson, aka the Beast. He's 27-year-old. He's spent his youth exploring a lot. He's a wreckage explorer, and he grew up to be a counselor. He's sanguine, which means he's usually in a good mood. Gonna take a lot to bring him down. He's pretty, which in combination with his social skills is gonna make him really good as a social person. And he's a brawler, so melee is good with him. He sucks at shooting, and he's never gonna be good at it, probably. So he'll go with melee long term. He's super good at social skills. He also likes working with his body a bit, so he got some construction and some mining that he can mainly develop over time, but he starts with some in it. He has some proficiency for crafting, but he doesn't have any passion for it, so it's not gonna increase that fast. Next, Ben Rothwell, aka Big Ben, and no, this is not, by the way, the real Ben Rothwell from MMA fame, and just so you know, I've changed the names around generally. Only the nicknames are real, but so he is actually called Big Ben, this guy. He's 24 years old, grew up as a student engineer, studied well, engineering of course, turned into soldier, and since he's in the Rim now, he's gone AWOL, obviously. He's a jogger, so he's gonna move really fast, and he's a careful shooter, so he takes slightly longer time to aim, but his aim is much better. He's also steadfast, which means he's gonna snap under pressure less often. Kind of makes sense when you're a soldier to be prepared for tough situations. So he's really good at shooting, pretty good at melee combat, some social skill, not like the Beast, but still good. He doesn't have much skill in cooking, but he has some passion for it, so you could learn it with time. Some crafting also, but no passion for it, so it's not gonna be optimal. Maybe some minor crafting, but not the things we want high quality. And he's got a bit of research knowledge, and he's really passionate about that as well, so that he'll probably be hunter and researcher primarily. Next, Sven Svensson, aka Baldwick. He was a history student as a child, became a fallen official as an adult. So he was an official for an autocratic government, but didn't want to go along with their atrocities, so that's why he's in the Rimworld apparently. He's an optimist, generally gonna be in a good mood, especially in combination with Iron Willed. He's very unlikely to snap. So he's generally in a good mood, and it takes a much worse mood for him to snap. He's a fast walker, and he's a good shooter, so him and Big Ben are gonna be the combat guys. He's pretty good socially, got some knowledge of animals, really likes cooking and brewing, and a bit of artistic background as well, and probably the best one managing. Actually, the best one might be the Beast, because social factors in it well. So he's, even though he's only got 2 in managing, because he's got 16 in social, that might outweigh Baldwick's managed skills. Last we got Bella. Bella Rothwell. She's the brother of Big Ben, and she's also she and Cutthroat, sorry, used to be a couple. So let's see if they'll be at each other's throats. She's 27 years old, grew up as a medical student, turned into a microbiologist. She's neurotic, so she'll work faster, but she'll break easier under mental pressure as well. So it's a bit of give and take on that one. She's a teetotaler, so she doesn't like alcohol and drugs, and she's heat tolerant, so she'll prefer higher temperatures, which probably not ideal for our personal the biome we're starting in. But if we get heat waves in the summer, she's the one who's gonna be handling it best. I realize right now I haven't given her enough melee. She should have more. Something like that. There was Big Ben. Yeah, she gets 7, but not a passion. She knows a bit of Jiu-Jitsu. Got a passion for animals and some skill. Pretty good medicine. I mean, if you're a biologist, even if it's a microbiologist, you probably know how the body works pretty well. Pretty artistic, the most artistic person. So if we want to make sculptures to trade, she's the one who'll be doing it. Crafting also. Arts and crafts are a bit of her thing. And research. I mean, microbiologist seems fair. So we'll actually have a lot of people who can research, but the things we're lacking in is mainly construction and growing. We don't really have any miners, but anyone can mine. It just takes a little longer. Construction and growing quality really factors in, and we have no one who's really good at it. But I think that's it for the background. So let's generate the world, then we'll end this episode and start episode 1. Okay, we got a world. This episode I realize have been a lot of talking, but if you want the background, I wanted it to be there. I don't want to leave any questions unanswered. But let's end it there, and I'll see you next episode.